You haven't slept in 3 days, but it's not because of the coffee. Mainly because coffee hasn't been invented for people like you yet, and because your stomach is currently a spiritual landfill. Welcome to the 18th century, the era of enlightenment for some, and the era of eating literal garbage for you. You are a sin eater. It's the ultimate dirty job, the kind of career path they don't mention in the village pamphlets unless they want to scare the kids into becoming blacksmiths. Imagine being the human personification of a search history that needs to be deleted. That's you. You live on the outskirts of the village, in a shack that smells like wet wool and impending doom, waiting for a knock on the door that only comes when someone's pulse stops. In this line of work, a code black isn't a hospital alert. It's the color of the bread you're about to swallow. The routine is simple, or as simple as ritualistic cannibalism of the soul can be. A wealthy farmer dies, or maybe a local drunkard who finally found the bottom of a ravine. Their family is terrified, not because they'll miss him, he was a prick, but because he's heading straight for the basement of the afterlife with enough sins to make the devil sweat. So they call you. They don't want to look at you, they don't want to touch you, and they certainly don't want to invite you to the wake. You are the social equivalent of a septic tank. Essential, but nobody wants to talk to the guy who handles the literal and figurative waste. You walk into the house of mourning. The air is thick with the smell of unwashed bodies and cheap tallow candles. There he is, Old Man Miller. He spent 80 years lying to his neighbors, hitting his dog, and probably embezzling from the parish. He's lying there, cold and stiff, with a wooden bowl placed on his chest. Inside that bowl, a piece of stale, crusty bread. That bread is your paycheck and your burden. It's been sitting on his corpse for an hour, supposedly soaking up every dark deed, every whispered lie, and every ounce of malice Miller ever produced. You sit across from him. The family is huddled in the corner, staring at you like a venomous snake that just crawled into their living room. You take the bread. It's dry. It tastes like dust and graveyard dirt. You wash it down with a lukewarm bowl of ale that tastes like it was brewed in a boot. As you chew, you're not just eating calories, you're digesting Miller's adultery, his greed, and that time he stole a cow from the widow down the road. This is the ultimate POV of exhaustion. Your job is to take the spiritual trash of the village and store it in your own soul so they can go to heaven looking like saints. By the time you finish the meal, you feel a little heavier, not physically, though the ale doesn't help, but mentally. You stand up, give a nod that nobody returns, and walk out. You get sixpence and the leftovers. It's a living, barely, but hey, at least you're self-employed. The real kick in the teeth, the village actually hates you for helping them. They think you're a monster because you're full of sins. It's the ultimate irony of the frontline worker. You do the job nobody else has the stomach for, you keep the system running, and in return, people cross the street when they see you coming. You're the 18th century version of an ER doctor who's been on a 48-hour shift, except instead of saving lives, you're salvaging souls, and instead of a paycheck, you get a reputation as a walking demon. Your eyes are bloodshot, your skin is a shade of pale that would make a ghost jealous, and your only friend is the constant nagging hunger that never quite goes away, no matter how much sin bread you shove down your throat. You don't exactly go to college for this. There's no Sin Eating 101 at Oxford. No, becoming a sin eater is usually a last resort career move. The kind you make when you've been blacklisted from every honest trade and your only other option is starving in a ditch. It's a dark inheritance. Most of us are recruited because we're already outside the system. Maybe you were a soldier who saw too much, or a disgraced apprentice, or maybe you were just born into a family that's been eating the village's filth for generations. The training isn't about learning how to eat, it's about learning to not go insane while you do it. The first thing your mentor, a guy who looked like a piece of dehydrated leather, told you was simple: don't taste the sins. He wasn't talking about the bread, he was talking about the psychological weight. He taught you the anatomy of the transference. You see, the villagers believe that the soul stays near the body for a few days after death, terrified and heavy. The bread acts as a sponge. To be a high-performance sin eater, you have to master the art of the mental block. You have to imagine your soul as a series of lead-lined boxes. Every time you eat for a dead man, you take that specific batch of filth and you lock it in a box. You never open the box. You never look inside. If you start thinking about the specific crimes you're consuming, the spiritual toxicity will rot you from the inside out faster than a gunshot wound to the gut. The physical part of the training is just as brutal. You have to build a stomach of iron. Victorian bread isn't the soft, sliced stuff you get at a supermarket. It's dense, often full of sawdust or plaster of Paris, and it's been sitting on a decaying body. Food poisoning isn't a risk, it's a Tuesday. You learn which ales kill the bacteria and which ones just give you the shakes. You learn to read the patient. A man who died of a sudden stroke is an easy meal. His sins are fresh, unprocessed. But someone who died of a long, lingering illness? Their sins are fermented. They're sticky. That bread is going to be a struggle to get down. Then there's the social conditioning. To be a sin eater is to accept total isolation. Part of your recruitment is the symbolic death of your old life. You're forbidden from entering the church. You're forbidden from marrying. You're a walking purgatory. If you've ever felt like a pariah after a 12-hour shift where you smells like bile and disinfectant, multiply that by 1,000. We are the ultimate burnout profession. Most sin eaters don't last 10 years. Eventually, the boxes in your mind start to leak. You start having dreams that aren't yours. You remember a murder you never committed. You feel the guilt of a man you never met. That's when you know your capacity is reaching code black levels. That's when the price starts looking for a way out. You also learn the villager psychology. These people are terrified of you, but they're more terrified of what's waiting for them in the dark. They'll spit on you in the morning and beg for your services at night. It's a toxic relationship. You're the one who keeps their ancestors from haunting the barns, the one who cleans the spiritual slate so they can keep being terrible people the next day. It's a cycle of abuse where you're the designated victim. You're trained to accept the silence. You're trained to ignore the whispers. You're trained to be the silent guardian of their peace of mind, all while your own mind is slowly becoming a crowded room full of ghosts shouting their secrets. It's 2 a.m., the graveyard shift of the soul, and you've just been summoned to the manor. This isn't a standard sixpence job. This is the big one. Lord Blackwood is dead. Blackwood was the kind of man who made the 10 Commandments look like a to-do list. He didn't just sin, he curated them. The village is in uproar. There's a storm rolling in off the moors, the kind that feels like the sky is trying to crush the earth, and you're standing at the gates of the estate, shivering in your thin rags. You can feel it. The air around the manor is cold, not winter cold, but void cold. This is the moment your training warned you about, the moment where the accumulated load becomes a critical failure. You enter the master bedroom. Blackwood is there, looking even more arrogant in death than he did in life. The bowl of bread on his chest is practically vibrating. The family isn't just huddled in the corner. They fled to the hallway, locking the door behind you. You're alone with a monster and a piece of bread that's soaked up enough darkness to dim the sun. You sit. You take the bread. The moment it touches your tongue, you realize you've made a mistake. This isn't a normal transference. It's a flood. The boxes in your mind, the ones you've spent years carefully sealing, they don't just leak, they shatter. Suddenly, it's not just Blackwood's sins, it's the ghosts of every meal you've ever eaten. The widow's lies, the farmer's cruelty, the thief's desperation, they all come screaming back. The superstition of the village isn't just a story. If you fail to digest the sin, if you let the guilt overwhelm your mental block, the price is paid in blood. You start to see them, figures in the corners of the room, shadows with no faces, the price coming to collect. They are the echoes of the men and women you saved, and they're not happy. They want their filth back, and they're willing to tear your mind apart to get it. You choke on the bread. It feels like swallowing broken glass. The ale tastes like poison. The room starts to spin, and the walls seem to bleed black ink. You're at GCS 3 of the soul. Your heart is hammering against your ribs like a trapped bird. You try to close the boxes, try to find that mental block, but Blackwood's sins are too heavy. You see his crimes, the people he crushed, the lives he ruined, and for a second you feel the weight of 1,000 souls pressing down on your chest. This is the code black of the Sin Eater, the total system collapse. The villagers are outside, watching the windows. They hear the flickering lights, they hear your screams, and they don't help. They're waiting to see if you survive, or if they'll need to find a new Sin Eater to eat your sins tomorrow. You realize then that you are the ultimate sacrificial lamb. You spent your life being the trash can for their morality, and now the bag is breaking. With a final agonizing effort, you force yourself to swallow. You scream into the empty room, a sound that isn't yours, but a chorus of 1,000 dead men. The storm breaks. The shadows recede. You're lying on the floor, gasping for air, your vision blurred by tears and exhaustion. Blackwood's body is still. The bread is gone. You've done it. You've absorbed the darkness. But as you stumble out of the manor into the cold rain, you don't feel like a hero. You feel empty. You feel like a hollow shell filled with lead. You look at your hands and they're shaking. You've survived the shift, but the price has been paid. You're not the same man who walked in. You're a vessel that's one crack away from shattering. You walk back to your shack, the sixpence heavy in your pocket, knowing that somewhere out there, someone else is dying. Someone else is sinning, and sooner or later, there will be another knock on the door, because the world is full of people who want to go to heaven, and they'll always need someone like you to go to hell for them. Welcome to the job. Don't forget your coffee, or whatever passes for it in this nightmare.